In today's video, I wanted to walk you through how to select the correct ad schedule for your campaign. So what that means is when exactly do you want your ads to be seen? And I said that I'd make this video at this time of year, especially as in our last video we mentioned, should you run your ads at all at Christmas or not? And like this is for when your actual campaign is running. Like what times of day, what days of the week, when do we want our ads to be shown? And this usually just completely varies depending on what type of campaign you're running, first of all, because if you're just selling products for ecom, for example, it doesn't really matter what time you make a sale because you don't have to, be available to answer anybody or anything like that. Whereas for lead generation campaigns, you don't want to just run your ads 24/7 for the most part. That is unless obviously like you have the team that that either that a lead form is going to be responded to within 30 minutes ideally, no matter what time it's filled out, or if you get a phone call that it's going to be answered. Because if you're missing phone calls and like not returning the call within a few minutes, or if you're getting lead form submissions through your email and not responding to them within 30 minutes, the chances are that for service-based businesses that lead is going to end up reaching out to another company in that time, and you'll lose out on the lead. And just getting back to people or answering the call alone will hugely increase your chances of turning that lead into a job. So no difference to like your sales skills or anything like that. Simply just being available to answer leads on time will make a big difference to like the amount of lead to sale conversion ratio that you get. But firstly, to actually be able to set your ad schedule. So when you're making a brand new campaign, first of all, once you choose the type of campaign that you're running, so you decide to run like, a search campaign for lead generation, for example, and you've added your bidding, so you've chosen, whether you want to go, for example, maximize clicks or maximize conversions, and you set, your maximum cost per click bid limit. Once you get past those first two stages, you'll come here to your campaign settings, and you'll choose which networks you want to be part of, locations. I'll be making a separate video on like, the full campaign setup tutorial itself, so like everything involved in the campaign. But just for this video, we're going to focus like and go into a bit more detail on ad schedule. But this won't be available to you to see right away. But down at the bottom of this page, you basically all you have to do is just choose more settings here and then go to add schedule. And you will see here that by default, it'll be selected to all day, meaning that when you start running the campaign, that your ads will be able to see 24/7. But basically, we don't want our ads to be running 24/7 if we know that we're not going to be able to answer the phone or get back to a lead, as we mentioned, within the shortest amount of time possible. And so usually what we like to do for lead generation anyways is go into like which days of the week first of all that we want to run our ads for. Now for the most part, after collecting data on lots of different service-based businesses in different industries, we found that the results generally tend to be better on Mondays to Fridays as opposed to targeting the weekends as well. The reason being is that we found that people are most likely just like kind of window shopping almost on the weekends where they have a lot more time on their hands and they're not necessarily people that are looking to get a job done, and your ads still might get the same amount of traffic and clicks, so spending the same amount of budget on the weekends but not converting at the same amount on your landing page into leads, meaning that your cost per lead on the weekends is going to be higher than during the week. Now, this isn't the case always, but that's just a general trend we've noticed after, managing lots of different campaigns in lots of different service-based industries. But obviously, if you're running some kind of service where somebody just needs to get the job done right now, for example, like, emergency plumbing repairs, then, I imagine running them on weekends, wouldn't be an issue because if you're targeting like emergency related keywords, then the chances are, that person's going to call you regardless. But that's just a general kind of guideline I'd follow when it comes to setting your ad schedule. Then with regards to the time of day you're running, I'd usually go with what your general like working hours are. So for example, that could be, for example, like 9 a.m. To 5 p.m. We've also had a lot of success with running ads from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. as well. And a lot of companies were just happy for us to run their ads for like 12 hours per day because they know that they were going to be available to answer the phone at those times. But like for example, in your case, if you know that you don't want to be getting phone calls or having to get back to emails after 6 or 7 p.m., then I would recommend just not running the ads at those times because if somebody, fills out a form submission at 6 p.m. and you're not checking your emails and you don't get back to them till the next morning, the chances are they've probably gone and found another company in that time. So that's why I'd always just recommend running the campaign when you can either answer the phone, or if you miss the call, return the call within a few minutes. Or if somebody fills out a lead form submission, that you get back to that, you either ring them or email them within 30 minutes of them filling out a form. So in general, like, if you know you're only going to be able to do this Monday to Fridays, and like even if for example, even after 2 p.m., you wouldn't be able to get back to people on time, then I'd recommend just starting with running the ads on a much more like limited amount of hours. You'd rather, only run the ads during your best hours as opposed to like too many hours when you're not 100% sure if you'd be able to get back to them. But it can make sense in certain times to run the ads, for example, Monday to Sunday, like every day of the week, and run the ads for longer hours each day. I'd usually recommend doing this when you're going to be limited for search volume, but I'd wait until the campaign has some data first, like to see if you actually need to do this. And like we've had it in some cases where we're just struggling to spend our budget, and a great way to get more impressions and to get the budget to start spending more is to just increase the amount of hours per day or the amount of days per week that our ads are eligible to be seen. So those were just some general guidelines about what to think about when you're selecting your ad schedule, and like how to determine what hours of the day and what days of the week I should be running my ads. But then once you've actually selected these days, and you actually have data on which is performing best, I then look at your data for each of the days of the week and like see when is performing best, because you're going to have data on all of the days of the week that you're running your ads, and you can make bid adjustments according to like which day of the week, for example, is getting you the lowest cost per conversion or the highest conversion rate. And we've have this campaign here that we've been running for about 1 to 2 months, and we've noticed that, for example, on Mondays and Thursdays, our conversion rate was like 19% and 15% here, giving us, cost per conversion of only 23 and £28, whereas the other days of the week have given us much higher cost per leads. So we just made a slight like bid adjustment of an extra 15% on these days. And if you, for example, want to make any bid adjustments yourself, if you want to go to a day of the week that isn't performing as well as the other days, you can just select that day. And once you do that, then you just press edit, and you can change bid adjustments then. Yeah, so you can increase or decrease that bid by a certain percentage based on how it's performing. So for example, if your usual like maximum cost per click bid limit is like £10, and you decide to increase this by 20%, then that means a £10 bid will become £12 as mentioned here, because that's an extra 20% on top of your initial bid. So that's kind of how that works. And you can do it in the opposite direction as well. So if you want to pay less per click on the days that aren't performing as well, you can add a negative bid adjustment too. And that's how I do that. So you're happy to spend more on the days of the week that you're getting much better results. And that's how I navigate that process. And here's just another account then, just to give you some more context on like an example of a campaign that we've been running for quite a bit longer. So for example, for like a year or more, you might notice then that like the same days of the week or different days of the week actually perform roughly the same, and that you're getting a pretty consistent cost per conversion across the board. So for example, in this case, we've only added like a positive bid adjustment for one day of the week just because it has a slightly lower cost per conversion than all the other days of the week, with an average cost per conversion of about €20 across all other days of the week. So like what I would say as well is that make sure you have a decent amount of data before adding bid adjustments for different days of the week, because the longer you run the campaign, you're giving yourself a lot more data to work with, and you're basically able to make more accurate decisions based on what you have, because you don't want days of the week only having about 10 clicks and then coming to conclusions based off that. You need to actually have a lot of data before you can decide, do I want to add a negative adjustment here or a positive one here? Because usually if you leave it run for a longer period of time, you'll notice that in a lot of cases anyway, like for example in this one, that each day of the week roughly performed around the same. But I reckon if we were running this campaign on Saturdays and Sundays as well, that we'd probably have to add negative bid adjustments, just because we've noticed across like a lot of the other campaigns that we're running that they just those 2 days of the week don't generally tend to perform as well. But because we are running this campaign 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Friday, we've just had pretty consistent results across the board. So those were just two examples of campaigns, with data of like running the ads on different days of the week and just giving you a bit more context as to what that looks like. But the overall purpose of this video was just to actually show you how to set your ad schedule and, a bit of context into like, how to choose which days of the week, times of the day that you should choose based on, your own unique situation and how to navigate that process. So I hope the video gave you some clarity into determining that for yourself in your own business or any, campaigns that you're running yourself. If you do have any other questions related to ad schedule or any other aspects of Google Ads, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And if you do like this kind of content as well, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel as we'll be posting all things related to Google Ads here daily. And I'll hopefully see you in the next video.